Some months back, our lives looked very different. We were living in Singapore, used to city life, routines, conveniences, offices, condos, transport, and everything being fairly organized. Fast forward, and we're now in the Philippines, standing in front of around 12 to 1300 coconuts, trying to turn a piece of land into a working farm. Now, as many as you may already know, we don't come from a farming background. So this pile of coconuts is exciting, but it's also a very real reminder that we've really made our midlife leap and are now living a new life. This isn't just a dream anymore. The coconuts are here. Now we have to go figure out how to plant them and how to give them the best start that we can. When we first started talking about changing our life, the idea was not just to move country, it was to build something different. Something slower in some ways, but much harder in others. Singapore was an amazing place for us in many, many ways. It was where we worked, planned, saved, built routines, lived a very structured and pretty standard life, and had many great friends. But this next chapter is very different. In fact, it was almost not a farm at all, and we were considering a very different route, but that's another story for another day. Here and now, the questions are less about meetings and emails and more about soil, weather, workers, tools, transport, planting, and whether we actually know what we're doing. And most of the time, the honest answer is that we're learning quickly. The first batch was around 600 coconuts. At that point, it felt like a big step, but it was still somehow manageable. It was one long drive and one small truck full, and we could think, okay, well, this is the start. But even after that first batch, it taught us something straight away. Even though sourcing and agreeing rates wasn't that straightforward, buying the coconuts was still the easy part. After that, we had to think about collection, loading, unloading, transport, storage, eventually planting, and a whole host of other things that come along with that. And because we're new to this, every simple sounding step does have a learning curve associated. How many people do we need? Where should we store the seed nuts? How quickly do we need to plant them? How do we track what has been planted? How do we stop ourselves from just guessing? This is part of that journey that I like to be honest about, because we're not arriving here as experts. We're arriving here as people trying to build a new life and to learn the practical reality of farming as we go. It's exciting and stressful. It's full of last-minute changes and laughter. It's full of cuts, aches, pains, and bruises that somehow feel insignificant compared to the joy and the sense of wonder that we get to experience. So then comes the next batch. Suddenly we've gone from looking at 600 coconuts to now looking at around 1800 coconuts in total. That number changes the way that we feel about the whole project. 600 feels like a beginning and a stepping stone. 1800 feels like a commitment. It's one thing to say we're going to start a coconut farm. It's another thing to see the coconuts arrive and realize that every single one now needs to become part of an actual system. This is where the move from city life to farm life does become very real. Because in the old life, if something needed organizing, it was usually a spreadsheet, a calendar, a message, or a meeting. Here, the planning still matters, a great deal, in fact, but it only counts if it survives in the real world. The mud, the heat or the rain, the workers' availability, the transport, the distance to the farm, the tools that are missing or need fixing, the things that we forgot, and the fact that nature doesn't care how nice the plan looked on paper. Once the coconuts arrived, the next job was getting them to the farm. And again, that sounds simple until you actually have to do it. The farm isn't a neat little garden behind the house. It's remote, it takes planning to get there, and every trip needs to count. So moving coconuts becomes a small operation in itself. If they turn up loose, you have to bag them. You need the vehicle, you need the people, you need the timing. You need somewhere sensible to put them when they arrive. And then once they're on the farm, they still have to be tended to before planting. Planting itself is a big operation. This is why our base of operations is becoming so important. Before we can really scale up, we need the basics. A place for workers to rest, a place to keep tools, a place for food and water, a way to organize the day, a way to track progress. Because planting a few coconuts is one thing. Trying to build a farm properly is something else entirely. So, when I look at this pile, I no longer just see coconuts. I see the difference between the life we left and the life we're trying to build. I see the first real physical proof that this transition is happening. I see work. Lots and lots and lots of work. But I also see possibility. Each coconut is a small piece of the future farm. Some will grow well, some probably won't, and I'm sure we'll make mistakes along the way. But this is still the point where the dream starts becoming less theoretical. It's no longer conversations about moving to the Philippines and trying something new. It's no longer just about having a farm one day. It's here, on the ground, in a pile, surrounding us quietly and patiently. And now, we have to turn it into something. One thing we want this channel to continue to show is the real process. Not just the nice drone shots that I'm not even very proficient at anyway, not just the finished working version, but the awkward early stages too. The stages where we're trying to figure things out. The stages where we underestimate things. The stages where we realize that changing your life midlife is exciting, but it doesn't mean that it's simple. We moved from a very structured city life into a completely different environment, and now we're learning skills that we never really needed before. Farming, land management, local logistics, working with people from a different culture, planning around the weather, and trying to build something that can eventually support us, support others, and become part of the community here. That's the biggest story behind this pile of coconuts. So this week's update is fairly simple, but for us it does feel important. Around 1,800 coconuts are now on the journey from delivery to planting. We're still very much at the beginning, under 300 coconuts planted currently. We're still learning, we're still making sense of what it really takes. But this transition is the one that we chose, from Singapore city life to building a farm in the Philippines. And this pile of coconuts is one of the first real signs that the new chapter has properly begun. A big thank you guys to watching and following along. You've been watching Let Go and Grow, where we document our midlife transition from comfortable city living to rural chaos. See you next time.